Yeah, no, tough one, but obviously life goes on, and you're already at your next tournament, Freestyle Chess, starting in a couple of days in Weissenhaus, Germany, and very much related to that. A lot of things have happened. I don't know how much you can talk about because all the top chess players are kind of caught in the crossfires of this big dispute between Freestyle Chess, Magnus, and Jan Büttner and FIDE. And it's getting pretty dirty, I have to say. It all started, I would say, kind of being in the public eye, and we've talked about it during the Rapid and Blitz in New York. Things were getting a little bit hostile. But right now, things have escalated. Let's see where we stand. So I think we're at this point, the dispute became quite obvious for what it was, and it was for the World Championship name and title that FIDE, understandably so, does not want to give, at least not for free. And Freestyle Chess says, look, FIDE, you're not really doing anything for Chess 960, Freestyle Chess, however you want to call it, Fisher Random. You're not doing anything. You haven't had the World Championship organized since 2022. So we feel like it's in the best interest of chess to take over it and at least have the World Championship title. Like, there's been some negotiations, numbers were thrown around, 100K, 50K, 500K. Finally, I think it was settled for 300K, and then the negotiations broke down. Not only that, but private messages started being leaked, which is a little bit, strange to say the least. But yeah, what's your take from somebody that had a contract on his desk that perhaps there was some pressure in that regard as well? What's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, I found the whole thing, or I find it, since I guess it's not like it's not over, let's say, right? It's kind of
It's
temporarily
delayed.
resolved.
It's delayed.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's temporarily resolved in the sense that, um, like FIDE stated one issue. This started in after the match against Magnus that I had, this kind of exhibition match I played in November in Singapore, which I heard immediately. I also mentioned this before, right? I heard immediately that, you know, you can't play competing or any sort of different than FIDE World Championship cycle. It's in your contract. You've signed it before. Yeah, I looked through contract, but it's all very long, and to be honest, I don't really want to like go to the legal side of things, right? It's just a waste of my energy. If FIDE tells me you can't play in a competing world championship cycle, what am I going to do? Fight with them? I mean, of course I can, but I don't really want to do it. And anyway, I was told this, and I basically told both of them, like, you guys figure it out. I don't want to get in the middle of things. I don't represent freestyle. I don't represent FIDE. I'm a player. I'm happy to play in your events. In general, my priorities are the classical world championship, and I think most players align with that. I can't really speak for other people so much, but my understanding is that most of the top players align with that their dream is to become the world champion, or perhaps they are the world champion in Gukesh's case. So his his interests also align financially with that. Um, and we're in some ways we're getting in the middle of it because we're useful for both sides
Right.
as players, kind of as tools to be used either as a negotiating tool or maybe a PR tool. Because both sides need the players, right? The players make the events. The organizers organize the events, but if you have no players, you can call it whatever you want. It's not going to be publicly received as anything.
I mean, to be
Whether you
honest, at
call
this
it,
point, whoever has the majority of players from the top 10, top 20 on their side wins the argument, pretty much.
it's not clear who has that. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
there was some sort of push in general internally to unite players on one side or the other. Um, uh, Both sides wanted to do this very naturally. They want to get the players on their side. And I think in general, people have a lot of different opinions among the players. Like, you know, if we're talking about Magnus, clearly that clearly his interests generally lie with freestyle because uh, he's part of the organization in some way. I mean, it's in some ways part of his initiative, right?
He's a
As
stakeholder
well
in the
as
company. Yeah.
as well as
So
Jan Buettner. Yeah, it's kind of their initiative. And Hikaru in general seems to have aligned in that direction as well. And I understand why. I mean, we've all also gotten frustrated many times dealing with FIDE in the past. But a lot of players also value the championship cycle perhaps even more than money, which the freestyle events are providing a great deal of money and it's financially very interesting. The World Championship, which is organized by FIDE, has a great legacy and a great history, which is valuable in its own way. And at least for me personally, I can assume also at least some, perhaps many other players feel the same way that, you know, it's a nice dream and a goal to become world championship and to add your name to the list of names like Kasparov, Fischer, Capablanca, Lasker, Steinitz, and so on. Not to speak of course of the modern champions as well. So it's just different priorities and like of course I want to play both. I want to play the really high money freestyle events which are fun and don't require super intense preparation. You know, it's not fun to play the candidates. I don't enjoy the stress that goes on for a month straight and also includes months of preparation beforehand. I could call it rewarding or uh, I want to do it, but definitely fun is not a word I'd use. While an event like this is fun, you know, it's not too much pressure. The money is nice. It rewards creativity a lot. You can kind of enjoy yourself without worrying too much about the consequences of every small decision. So it's just very different, and I would like to play both. But I was being told that, you know, maybe I can play both or maybe I can't.
yeah.
And legally, I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know if FIDE has a position. I understand that their desire is very logical, and perhaps it's even good. But I don't know if they legally have a position where they can pretty much trademark Chess World Championship. And I do think in one place they really do fail, at least from a moral point of view, which is that uh, if your position is that, you know, we have to maintain the integrity of the World Championship, which is a very fair position, and we can't allow all sorts of different entities, perhaps with their own financial interests, to take it in directions that we can't control. I'm not saying that that's the case, but if that's their position, they still need to organize a Fischer Random or Freestyle, whatever, Chess 960, whatever you want to call it, World Championship. You still have to do that. You can't just eliminate the whole thing and then say we have a right to this thing, which we're also not doing ourselves. The last time they did it was 2022. Hikaru won. That's 2.5 years ago. There has been no, at least plan, from what I've seen, to have another Fischer Random World Championship. So to me, okay, Hikaru is still the Fischer Random World Champion. Maybe in 80 years, FIDE will still not have organized anything, uh, and Hikaru will still be the Fischer Random World Champion at the age of 115. I mean, like you have to organize it, or it loses its value because it doesn't. You know, part of the value of the World Championship is that it's a recurring thing, which tests the best player at that moment continuously, right? At that format. They do the World Rapid Championship, they do the World Blitz Championship. They don't do the Fischer Random World Championship. So you'd think that it's a match made in heaven. Freestyle wants to organize a World Championship. FIDE needs to organize a World Championship. It seems logically that there should be a way to align their interests, but for some reason they couldn't.
I
Um,
feel it became a matter of principle, right? Kind of a tug of war, especially financially, I guess. Obviously, whoever is sponsoring or whoever is backing freestyle chess has deep pockets, and they probably have a very vested interest in it being named the World Championship. Now, FIDE wants money for that. They're trying to get some money out of it. They're trying to, please their financial needs as well. And for me, it felt like they're just simply going to find a common denominator, find an amount that they both feel comfortable with, and the negotiation would be over. But again, it just felt like slowly, since Magnus took the stand during the Blitz, it felt that the relationship soured somehow. And then obviously you were having this whole Emil Dvorkovich bad cop, good cop situation, and it felt like somebody stepped on somebody's feet. You know what I mean? And
It was clearly sour. I mean,
it
from the
became some
beginning,
an
very, very
ego
clear.
ego situation almost.
But I still don't really understand it. I mean, I actually I've talked to both parties, and they've told me what, the negotiations are, what the offers are, what the problems are, and I just don't get it. I really didn't get it. I didn't end up understanding where the breaking point was, because at some point, what they told me was that everything that we want is being offered by the other party, and everything that they want is being offered by us. And still, it it just doesn't make sense to me. So of course, my assumption is that, I heard perhaps um, a slightly cleaned up version of the events from one side or the other. But I really don't know. And I don't think that either side like has is acting in bad faith necessarily. I don't think that. And I also think that in their own respective roles, they do often do a good job. I think like the freestyle events um, are really well organized, and they have a good vision, and I've enjoyed playing them.
They're fun. They're fun to watch
And they're
also.
fun. They're very entertaining. I think the public likes them. They bring the best players together. The money is very good. There's a lot of praise that I could put on these tournaments. And FIDE does organize consistently a world championship cycle that I find valuable, and that most of the people who enjoy chess find valuable, I believe. The Classical World
Absolutely.
Championship is the most
Absolutely.
watched event and the most important event. I think pretty much everyone in the chess world agrees on that. And all the players who are playing this event, they want, well, besides Magnus, because he opted out, want to become the world champion in classical chess. So besides Magnus, who has been world champion and chose to not defend his title after many years, everyone else wants to be world champion. So we all have interest in FIDE, and we all have interest in playing the freestyle tournaments. That's like, I think, widely the players' position. But of course, there's going to be some nuances, because players are going to have to potentially weigh, you know, the. I'm in a slightly unique situation because I qualified for the candidates, so I'm kind of like have more interest in being in the FIDE cycle, because my chances are a bit greater than other players currently, because they still have to qualify, right?
Yeah.
I have a bit more equity
Yeah.
in terms of that.
You do. You do. Yeah.
But nobody wants to give up playing the FIDE tournaments, right? For mostly from the players.
Right. And I feel
Even
it's
Hikaru, I think.
well, and that's kind of where, you're starting to see a gray area, right? People that are aging out, let's say, of these hopes and dreams, right? Because players are very practical, and they understand that at some point you reach a certain age, you reach a certain level of maturity and level of understanding, that you understand your not necessarily that your dreams might not be attainable, but maybe you're just not even interested in them to the same degree that the players such as Prague or
Yeah,
Gukesh
that will
or
change
the
for sure.
20-year-olds have, right? So I'm seeing this as a battle of generations as well, if that makes any sense, right? On which side
But
one
I do
generation
think
is going
that
to be more.
it's still individual. I still think it's
It is
individual.
very
Like
individual,
there's the
yes.
age factor. I'm older than Noterbeck. He hasn't played the candidates. I've played it many times, so I've been through the gauntlet, and he wants to go through the gauntlet.
Like Nodirbeck, I don't
Um,
see him going for freestyle chess. Like if he's forced to do something, I see him as a clear, I'm on FIDE side.
I actually think most players would choose to play the FIDE events. I really do. And I and of course there's going to be an age factor perhaps, and some sort of monetary consideration that older players may weigh a bit more naturally.
Like Levon, for example. If he's forced, I think he's going to go with freestyle. I'll just give you a couple of names, like one from the other side.
I really don't know. I hope that no player is forced to choose. I don't know about Levon's preference. I could have like a pretty good idea of what Hikaru has said publicly, like his preferences
Hikaru is
is
probably going to go with freestyle, right?
well, he's kind of hinted publicly at a more um like perhaps adversarial towards again, I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth. I don't know their choices as
Right.
well. Like maybe Hikaru would choose to play FIDE events. The thing is, my hope in general is that there doesn't have to be a choice. And at least within the past few days, there was like for me, always the simplest solution was just don't call it the World Championship. But I can't tell a private organizer not to call his tournament that he
Investors are
wants
not
to.
going to be happy about that. Like investors
Well,
want something, they put a lot of money. I think they have like $12 million backing, which is a lot of money. I think they won the world championship
maybe,
title.
yeah. But it's the best solution in terms of peace, right? It brings the peace immediately because that's the one thing that FIDE said you can't do. And if you, but aside from that, it's basically any other tournament like the Grand Chess Tour, the Global Chess League, this, that, whatever other tournament that FIDE has absolutely no qualms over. Uh, it becomes part of those events that coexist peacefully with FIDE, and FIDE basically just says we'll organize our dates around your dates and we'll find solution in terms of scheduling. Just don't call it the World Championship and we're good. That's basically it. So they took out all the. I do want to clarify one thing. The freestyle was it wasn't called like the Weisenhouse World Championship. It was called the Grand Slam, Freestyle Grand Slam. And at the end, they were going to, um, based on the Grand Slam results, they were going to announce a world champion. But the language was only in like one place, basically. It was only in the regulations somewhere. I didn't even know about it until like FIDE talked to me and showed me that this language was in this particular place. Once they took it out of that place, the whole problem went away, at least until freestyle decides that they want to call it a world championship again, which may happen. And then the only solution, which could bring all the players together, is if FIDE is part of that, is sanctions it in some way. Aside from that, you would like the issue is, and I told both sides this that like you'll see a split. Like you can postpone it as much as you want, but if you call it a world championship at any point and FIDE doesn't sanction it, the players will either I don't know if they'll be forced to choose. Maybe they can go with, but players are not going to want to get their lawyers on it, and you will see a split of players. Some players will choose this, some players will choose that, which is not ideal for anyone. So basically, at some point, they have to find a solution, either not call it a world championship or FIDE sanctions it as a world championship. Or they go through this whole painful litigation process. And I don't know what the outcome of that is, but personally, I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want my time to be spent dealing with lawyers, dealing with FIDE representatives, and not knowing which tournament will be my next one. That's at least my position.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I think it's a very fair position, and it's one that as somebody that not necessarily has a stake, a financial stake in any of the companies, would take. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and I feel this one hopefully is going to be resolved in after some negotiations. Both parties will come back to the table and agree to what they seem to have agreed upon, and I think it was even announced by this Tarjay guy who said that it seems like they have a deal and it's going to be announced on Monday, and then
But
everything
it was
broke
always
down.
in the negotiation phase.
Right.
It was never a solid deal. No, there was nothing signed ever, and I don't know why it fell apart.
Yeah.
But it was only something like we're close. I kept hearing we're close to something,
But at least
but
on paper, what he reported, I think it was him. $300,000 FIDE representatives at all tournaments, or at least at the finals, or whenever a world championship, a world champion is announced. Like everything seemed to be very, very in place, in tune to whatever
Yeah, I
everybody
think so.
wanted, and then
I
it
think it was
just broke
fair.
down. And then it just broke down.
I think it was a pretty fair offer, and I don't know why
Yeah,
FIDE
it
didn't
felt
go
like a
for
fair
it.
offer. Yeah, yeah.
It felt like a nice solution to the issue. I don't know why. I do think that like one thing I definitely disagree with on FIDE, because I'm not going to comment on the negotiation stuff because I don't know all the stuff that went between them. But they did send this letter out by email to everyone rated over 27, 25. That's all the players rated over 27, 25.
Well, the players that
Uh,
were in this freestyle championship club or
yeah,
freestyle clubs.
and the letter basically was, I mean, it was also public, right? It was that, FIDE had discussions with Freestyle and et cetera, et cetera. We couldn't come to agreement. We failed to reach an agreement. And then what does this mean for you? You already signed contracts, but FIDE is offering a one-time exception for 2025. Basically, even if it's called a world championship, you can play it and you won't get penalized, but only for 2025.
Right.
And you have to sign your understanding that it's only for this year and that for next year, you are opting out of any other thing which is called a world championship. And then it came with a legal document, I mean, there's a waiver basically, that it was expected that it would be signed before, was it February 3rd? And, the player is informed and acknowledged, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this also became public, right?
It did. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't mind that they're, asking for this, but that to do it during a tournament, during Vikings, which I was playing, Noterbeck, Gukesh, Prague, Fedosave was qualified. A lot of players are are being asked to sign a document within the next basically 10 days during a
In
tournament
the middle of the tournament. Yeah, that's not feasible.
for a tournament which I accepted my invitation for in July. Like when I accepted to play Wiesenhaus, it was in July and it wasn't called a world championship or anything. So this is an absolutely unfair bit of pressure to put on players. I think that that was a really wrong step. Like they could have handled it in different ways. I already said they should handle it with the organizer. You can't just start pressuring players with like very short notice documents. I'm not even when they send this letter, it's not like they're telling me, you're invited to the candidates in 2026 and therefore, we need to know. No, it's just that you have to sign this letter. This has nothing to do with any tournament that you're playing in the future of ours. This is just that you don't play another tournament that you already agreed to a half a year ago because we have a private conflict with the organizer that has nothing to do with you. And now we want a short notice contract signed. That I think is not a way to go about it.
Yeah, yeah, no. On a positive note, I do think that both parties somehow have a positive agreement in mind for the future. I feel like Freestyle saying that okay, we're not going to name it when they could have named it a world championship, and some players would have signed, some players wouldn't, and then they would at least kind of understand where everybody lies. But not forcing the players, obviously. This allows them 1 year to decide on what they want to do, whether they want to take it to litigation, take it to court, and try to get the name from FIDE, or reach a conclusion and reach a negotiated sum and agreement with FIDE. And then FIDE immediately said that, okay, since it's not going to be called the World Championship, you guys don't have to sign anything, at least not for the moment. So
yeah, that's the current position.
I feel like everybody kind of, like you guys, especially as players, got what you wanted, and that's good because the players are the most important in the end. And I guess we will see what's going to happen in a year's time, but I feel like both parties, at least right now, the last couple of steps, the last couple of moves that I've seen from both of them, they seem to hint at a positive outcome later on in the future and more negotiation to happen. So
I really think like what they should be somehow they should find an agreement to have it as a sort of partnership, not a full partnership, but that FIDE says, this is the official world championship, and we sanction it, and Freestyle makes some commitments, and FIDE makes some commitments, and everyone's happy, because it really is something that FIDE has failed to do. They haven't organized a world championship since 2022. The one before that was 2019. They've hosted like two official Fisher Random World Championships, and then if you want to have a claim over the title, then you have to kind of put effort into organizing it. It's also a form of chess, which people value in terms of finding out who's the best player. It's a bit different from classical chess. Like, we don't take it maybe as seriously, but and we don't devote all our time to trying to be the best, right? In the same way that we do with work towards classical chess. But still, it's a very valid and interesting form of chess, and the best classical chess players also do happen to be the best Fisher random chess players. And also, I like take great exception to how they organized the event in 2022 in terms of their selection of players. It was an 8-player event, and 4 players were wildcards.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You can't have half a tournament being a wild card.
Yeah, that was a bit crazy.
And the rest was online qualifiers, where the first event I played was on chess.com. There were no measures. I played a guy who was 2000 chess.com rating, and that guy beat me and Hikaru in the same event. And we both dropped out of the event because we were losing so many games. And then I just chose not to play any more qualifying events because I was like, okay, if they're not taking it seriously, then I'm not going to play. Why should I waste my time?
Online
And
qualifying events for a world championship is absolutely nuts. I mean,
and
you
Hikaru
cannot
played the
control
Elite
that.
Chess event
Yeah, he
and
won it.
qualified through there,
Yeah,
where maybe they had some cameras to ensure that nobody's cheating. But when I played, it was just a complete mess. I'm playing against players who are like 1500s, and they're crushing me and Hikaru. And the rest of the tournament was just wild cards. I mean, the host nation had a wild card for a world championship. You can't have that. You can't have the host nation. It was Iceland, right? They played Reykjavik,
Yeah.
which makes sense. It's
Yeah.
Fisher random. The whole thing, even though Hikaru is a worthy Fisher random world champion, the whole process, I think, was just ridiculous. I mean, the event made no sense. So they have to put effort into organizing it in the future, or collaborating with Freestyle and making like a really proper world championship. Those are the best outcomes in my opinion.
Yeah. No. I do think that the best outcome, at least from my perspective and from what I've seen in the past year since freestyle kind of emerged, is to give it to them. Find a solution, give it to them. Obviously, they're very serious about it. They have the backing and they have the vision. And I do think that with those things, with the star power that Magnus has, obviously things are going to move in the right direction. So try to find a solution, put more meat on the table for the players, put more meat on the table for the fans, for the spectators, for everybody involved in chess. So yeah, I think this would be the right solution. Just you need to find a negotiated outcome. We'll see how it happens. I think this saga is not over yet. But Fabi, you're starting in a couple of days. You're feeling emotionally stable, psychologically stable after Tata Steel. You're looking forward to the event. What's the mental state you're in right now?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing. It'll be a fun change. I feel pretty decent about it. But it'll be tough. It's a tough event. Everyone's here. Well, not everyone, but everyone's here. It's a really strong event, and it's a familiar place to me. I've been here before. Last year in February, we
It's a
played the
beautiful
same
place, right?
same location. What's that?
It's a beautiful place, right? I've never
Yeah,
been, but
yeah.
I've heard
It's a
very good things
resort.
about it.
It's a resort in the very, very north point of Germany. Closest major city is Hamburg. I guess depending on your definition of major city, but um, it's very, very north of Germany, and Wiesenhaus tournament. It'll be fun. I do have to head out though.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a plan. No, you did tell me that you have a dinner. So go out there, enjoy yourself, and I'm sure we'll catch up throughout the event. And yeah, have fun and say hi to everybody.
Will do.
All right. Cheers, Fabi. Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye.